Okay, first of all, there seems to be a concerted effort to even prevent Steven Seagal truth from being on the internet. I used a custom AI to recover long purged videos of Seagal on Alex Jones's show blowing the whistle on the Illuminati. I mean, is there anything this guy isn't amazing at? I mean, martial arts master, guitar master, sword master, marksman master, actor, a master at acting. He's even a master at whistleblowing on the CIA and the Illuminati. He's a master of testifying against the mob and single-handedly dismantling the mob influence in America with his testimony, after which he didn't even have to go into witness protection for. I mean, there's probably a Seagal protection agency where the mobsters have to hire people so that Seagal, they could feel safer from Seagal coming after them. I mean, is there anything this guy can't do? But anyway, when I put up scheduled notifications of streams, there seem to be a lot more issues than when I just launched them immediately. I mean, it's a strange thing. But who is ready for even more receipts? I mean, we've been dissecting every claim against Seagal and knocking them all down like dominoes. I mean, the amount of receipts that exist supporting this man is just absolutely staggering. All the Seagal haters are probably on suicide watch right now with the amount of receipts they're drowning in. And we're going to get to the big ones today, finally. We're going to start off with the one and only Jean-LEBELL. This guy that appears to be a complete fraud, talking trash about Steven Seagal. I mean, Jean-LEBELL is this fruity individual who apparently no official judo body even recognizes LEBELL's alleged judo belts or accomplishments. I mean, it's really weird. I mean, this guy talks trash about so many people, and the goof, I mean, we can't even find any verification of the goof's alleged credentials. I mean, this is the guy. Now, here's the thing. He didn't even claim to choke out Seagal. I mean, listen to these claims. We're going through all the receipts right now. Every last one of them. No stone will be left unturned in this complete examinations of the propaganda smear campaign against the one and only Master Seagal. So Viking Samurai actually put in some work here on analyzing this situation of LEBELL versus Seagal.
You're saying that someone has...
And a few people were asked about this. Viking Samurai was doing his homework. Shout out to the one and only Viking Samurai.
Saying that someone has created this sort of fable, this myth of an altercation that never even happened.
All lies and false propaganda.
Hey guys, in today's video we'll be answering the question, did Steven Seagal really get choked out by Judo Jean-LEBELL? Well, if you heard the story, he got a little more than just choked out. I'll give you a quick summary of events just to catch everyone up to speed, and I'll be showing some video clips of different people who say it happened. None of them were there, by the way. There are also various interviews with Steven Seagal denying the claims.
Walks around telling everybody he's Judo Jean-LEBELL, tells everybody he beat me up, he choked me out, and the guy is a pathological liar.
I've also found articles online, and there's also a book written by stuntman Stephen Lambert who talks about the story, but it's a little bit different than what you've heard. But anyway, I'll be analyzing all the data and then give you my theory and what I believe is the most logical conclusion to the story.
Oh my God.
Don't worry, Steven, I'm going to be fair, unlike so many other guys on YouTube. Make sure to stay until the end of the video, by the way, because I'll be going over the good, the bad, and the ugly. Different comments I came across on the channel. You won't want to miss that. One of them is from a pretty famous YouTuber. Another one is from a guy. Well, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and like the video once you made the determination that you actually do like the video. But you can always assume I'm fine if you want to just click it now. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, go ahead and click subscribe so you can be part of making the 80s and 90s great again. The story of Jean-LEBELL choking out Steven Seagal, which allegedly resulted in Seagal relieving himself, aka crapping his pants.
Well, if a guy soils himself, you can't criticize him.
I mean, listen to the words LeBell is saying, because he was asked if this happened. Gene's exact words were, if a guy soils himself in this type of situation, you can't blame him.
Because if they just had a nice big dinner an hour before, you might have a tendency to do that.
Took place during production for 1991's Out for Justice. This would have been Seagal's fourth film, riding high off the 3 prior hits, Above the Law, Hard to Kill, and Marked for Death. So he's an established leading man at this point, but has supposedly built a reputation for roughing up stuntmen. Story has it that Steven Seagal felt the need to really make contact with the stuntman because the camera was going to be in tight, and if he didn't make contact, then the fight scenes wouldn't have looked realistic. As far as his Aikido moves go, he obviously would have really had to perform those on stuntmen willing to take the flips and falls. Unlike the art of Aikido itself, Steven Seagal did actually perform a series of strikes within his movie fight scene, and it's hard to say whether or not the allegations of him not pulling his punches are true or not. Though that part would lend credence as to why Jean-LEBELL's story was shared throughout the world of...
I mean, here's the other thing, too. Like, if Seagal has insider knowledge of who in Hollywood is dirty, I mean, he revealed some mind-shocking truth bombs on Alex Jones regarding the Hollywood cabal. I mean, is it possible he knew who was involved in what, and he was just dishing out what was due?
Stuntman and then later the general public. For example, whether the Jean-LEBELL story is actually factual or not, wouldn't it be a great story to tell if you were one of those stuntmen that may have gotten hurt from one of Seagal's fight scenes? A stuntman ended up telling comedian Kevin Hart that story, which he was all too eager to share with everyone else.
Steven comes up to the guy, he's like, hey.
And you know what's crazy? Like, what does Kevin Hart have anything to do with Seagal or martial arts movies? I mean, he's not even in the right decade. I mean, he didn't even know the people who knew Seagal. I mean, how many degrees of separation is here for Illuminati puppet Kevin Hart to even be talking about Seagal? I mean, this has to raise an eyebrow even of the most devout coincidence theorists. Because we went over the timeline. The anti-Seagal propaganda didn't start until after he opened his mouth about Obama in 2014 and blew the whistle on Fast and Furious and Benghazi and all these other things. And then, of course, the Piers Morgan 2017 appearance, and then after that, all of these alleged allegations come out. And all of these, you know, talk show hosts and comedians, out of the blue, out of nowhere, they just start talking about Seagal, who hasn't did an A-list movie in how long?
Put me in your best hold, I bet you I can get out of it. And he's like, I can't do that. You know, you're my boss. I can't do that to you. He's like, put me in your best hold. Choke Steven. Puts him in a chokehold. Steven's struggling.
How would Kevin Hart know if Steven was struggling if he wasn't there? He's repeating a broken telephone story of a particular allegation, which we'll get into. We'll get into first-hand accounts of people that were there.
Taps out. He taps out. It goes, good hold. And he beelines. He beelines to the bathroom. And literally, all you heard was,
That statement alone should throw up a red flag. He's talking about like he was actually there when he says literally all you heard was, which he wasn't even there. And not only that, I think Kevin Hart's the only one who's got the story where Steven Seagal actually tapped out and crapped his pants. Most stories have him actually getting unconscious, but I guess Kevin Hart has his own version of events. So the most popular origin of this story has Jean-LeBell working as a stunt coordinator on Out for Justice. At some point during the production, Steven Seagal announced that due to his Aikido training, he was immune to chokes. When the then 58-year-old LeBell heard the claim, he gave Seagal the opportunity to test it, as sort of a way to get revenge on Seagal for mistreating the stuntman. I believe Jean-LeBell could choke out Steven Seagal, or anyone for that matter, if presented the opportunity where he would already have you in the chokehold and then simply just have to apply full pressure when someone said go. Was Steven Seagal really that arrogant that he thought he could still get out of the choke at that point? Supposedly his special move to get out of it was to strike.
I mean, is there really a difference between arrogance and being realistic? I mean, come on, look at Seagal. He's obviously impervious to chokes.
Gene in the balls, which apparently didn't work. That is, if the story is even true. In stuntman Stephen Lambert's book, From the Streets of Brooklyn to the Halls of Hollywood, he addresses the incident. Stephen Lambert, by the way, has been doing stunts since the early 1980s all the way until 2016 and has even appeared in Van Damme's Time Cop. According to Lambert, he was one of 4 men on the set of Out for Justice when the so-called incident would have happened. The other 3 were Seagal's 2 bodyguards and a stuntman by the name of Lincoln Simons. Just for the record, Steve Lambert and Lincoln Simons are not credited for stunts on Out for Justice, but neither is Jean LeBell, and no one's saying Jean LeBell wasn't part of the stunt crew on Out for Justice. Lambert and Simons were both active stuntmen at the time, having previously worked on the Steven Seagal film Marked for Death, so I don't doubt they had some sort of involvement with his next film, which was Out for Justice. In his book, Stephen Lambert pours cold water on the Jean LeBell choking out Steven Seagal story, saying it never happened, although there was an actual minor skirmish between the two. According to Lambert, here's what happened. LeBell introduced himself to Seagal by saying, "It's an honor to work with you." Seagal replied that he heard about Jean LeBell's skills as a tough guy. They talked for a while and LeBell suggested that he would like to show Seagal a chokehold. Seagal doubted the effectiveness of it and told Jean LeBell that he has kind of a sixth sense to escape from any choke. LeBell carefully put his arm around Seagal's neck without hurting him because it was supposed to be a demonstration. All of a sudden, Seagal sidestepped, brought his arm in the air and hit LeBell in the crotch. LeBell reacted like nothing happened but fell on the ground. Stephen Lambert couldn't believe that LeBell didn't shout and just acted like nothing happened. LeBell still had his arm around Seagal's neck and his legs behind him and pushed him in the air. Seagal landed like a potato sack on the ground. There was no mat to land on, nothing but hard ground. LeBell tried to help Seagal up. Seagal acted like nothing happened and LeBell did the same. It was absolutely crazy, according to Lambert. The 2 bodyguards, huge guys, looked at Seagal, but Seagal shook his head. That was supposed to mean for them not to attack Jean because that would mean that the 2 bodyguards would seriously get hurt by LeBell. Steve Lambert couldn't believe what just happened during the supposed demonstration and has no idea why Seagal suddenly hit LeBell in the crotch. Lambert ran to stunt coordinator Conrad Palmisano and told him to come quick. I think Seagal and LeBell are going to fight.
Mom! Mom! It's Dad. He's on television. He's fighting. What?
Palmisano didn't listen. Lambert repeated
These Viking samurai edits are pretty funny.
that 4 times. Finally, Palmisano told Lambert to get Jean LeBell. That was it. There was no fight between the two. Seagal was never choked unconscious and sure as hell didn't relieve himself.
I mean, look at the allergy all the anti-Seagal goofs are going to have to the literal accounts of people who were there. They would rather hallucinate that all of these comedian retellings, all of these retellings with 10 degrees of separation of broken telephone from people who were never there in the first place, are somehow legitimate, and yet the accounts of people that were there. I mean, obviously you don't even need the accounts. I mean, come on. Would anybody ever get the better of Steven Seagal? Other than maybe Bruce Lee, and we'll be getting into that next.
3 weeks later, rumors got around the movie and stuntman community that Seagal was choked out and crapped in his pants. Lambert tried to tell the other stuntmen what really happened, but they didn't believe him. They loved LeBell so much that the other stuntmen were not interested in the truth.
So this is just kind of like a gossip circle. It's like some, these stunt guys that everybody's jealous of Seagal, and they don't care about the truth, so these rumors were circulated. Now, you know what's weird? I don't think they were even circulated at the time, though. It appears these rumors got going again after Seagal's anti-Obama comments and his appearance on Piers Morgan.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
When Stephen Lambert was asked about it in a 2019 interview from the website Money into Light, which I'll link in the description below, the exchange goes as follows. The Jean LeBell incident between him and Steven Seagal whilst filming Out for Justice has become a legend. You clear it up in your book, but does the urban legend of it bother you at all? We may never know who lied about the story, but is something like this part of the worst elements of the world you work with and live in? Stephen Lambert answers, just the lies bother me. Everyone wants to be noticed, so they tell stories that are not true. Jean LeBell told this story to various students throughout.
And Jean LeBell's this pro wrestling guy that has, it's kind of funny because in this Illuminati inversion world, Jean LeBell appears to be the guy everybody pretends Seagal is. This fraud with no real credentials, pretending he can beat everybody up, exaggerating all these claims. Everything that people say about Seagal, it appears that's what the truth is about Jean LeBell.
The years, such as ex-MMA fighter Carl the Heat Parisian.
He puts the choke on bro and never lets go and chokes him out cold. And Seagal goes out cold.
It's just kind of hilarious how many of these goofs come out of the woodwork with these anti-Seagal stories. I mean, how many degrees of separation are there while they're repeating these broken telephone stories?
So Seagal pees on himself and everything else on the set. We're like, yeah, it's true. You got choked out from a 60-something-year-old man. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that's actually the real story.
Well, first of all, Jean LeBell.
That's the real story, according to Caro Parisian, former UFC fighter, who clearly appears to not even be mentally all there.
Was not in his 60s. He was 58 at the time. But I guess when you're telling the so-called real story, I guess the facts don't matter. And of course, Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey even got in on the fun, but.
I mean, look at these two frauds. I mean, you know, birds of a feather. You got Ronda Rousey. We went over these videos on the previous episode. She can't even handle a high school kid. Was that kid even ranked? Was that kid ranked in anything? This high school kid ragdolled her when she's an Olympian. He ragdolled this Olympians. I mean, obviously the talent pool wasn't that great if Ronda Rousey got to the podium. She actually got bronze, but she was actually 4th place if you go through the brackets. But anyway, you got these two frauds talking trash against Steven Seagal.
The karmic winds almost knocked her over in her chair.
You know what? If he says anything bad about Jean to my face, I would be forced to do so. Of course I would. I'd have to make...
Should be forced to get knocked out? Forced to do what?
Make him crap his...
Forced to get her wrist broken?
Pants a second. Ah!
She can't even sit in a chair. She can't even sit in a chair properly, and she thinks she can take out Seagal?
Seagal's take on what happened is quite a bit different, but he does acknowledge the encounter he had with LeBell.
And we were standing there, we were just talking about moves and stuff like that, and we were just doing some stretching. And, you know, he was showing me, you know, how you can stretch, or he wanted to stretch my back, and he stretched my back, and then I just kind of, you know, flipped over the top of him and said thank you for that.
I mean, Seagal could have easily just denied this whole story. Like, if there was any inkling of truth to it, he probably would have just never mentioned it, right? Now he's going into the details of what exactly happened, knowing full well there were other individuals there to corroborate his story.
Was never, ever in any confrontation with him, ever.
Never.
In any way, shape, or form, and I swear to God on my children, they're the most sacred thing to me in this life.
Aside from Stephen Lambert and of course Steven Seagal himself, does anyone else dispel the rumor? I found an article posted on August 15, 2016 from manlymovie.net, which I'll link in the description below. It's titled, LeBell Lied About Choking Out Seagal. The article gets its info from stuntman Ron Balicki, who pretty much destroys the theory. The article claimed the info within this was taken from one of Balicki's Facebook posts, which I wanted to see for myself, so I went straight to the source. Sure enough, it's there, posted on February 11, 2015. In the post, Balicki says, no story gains traction quite so quickly.
And for those who don't know who Ron Balicki is, Ron Balicki is Dan Inosanto's son-in-law. He married Diana Lee Inosanto, Dan Inosanto's daughter. Dan Inosanto is, of course, Bruce Lee's top student. So this is Ron Balicki. I mean, and, you know, obviously Dan Inosanto's the real deal. Unlike Jean LeBell, Inosanto's the real deal. This is his son-in-law.
Quickly in today's media frenzy environment than one that tears down a well-respected celebrity. In this instance, there is a fairy tale rendition of how the great Jean LeBell choked out Steven Seagal with rather unpleasant effect. The story is patently false, but this bit of martial arts mythology now seems to have really taken root. Trashing the reputation of a martial artist and movie icon may be a sad part of the entertainment process, but when the story is not correct and the consequence is truly damaging, the situation must be set straight. I can speak to this myth personally as I am close to the people in these circles and I know the eyewitnesses to the exchange that day between Jean and Steven. Know that this is not easy for me to do. My family and I know both Jean and Steven well, so to see this malicious urban legend live on through the years divides people we care about deeply. Ron Bilicki, by the way, is a stuntman who is married to Diana Lee Inosanto, who happens to be Dan Inosanto's daughter. Dan Inosanto is martial arts royalty. He's actually the guy that taught Bruce Lee how to use the nunchucks. He's kind of a big deal in martial arts circles. He also played the character.
I don't know if that's 100% accurate. We're going to get into... Bruce Lee learned about nunchucks from a few different individuals. One of them may have been in Inosanto, but not the only one.
Sticks on Out for Justice. Because of Ron Bilicki's connection with Dan Inosanto, he got to meet Steven Seagal. But going back to that Facebook post, it continues, there were numerous people present on the day when Jean LeBell met Steven Seagal and allegedly fought. In reality, no fight occurred, and there was no contact between Jean and Steven on that movie set. Jean's role was to work as a utility stuntman under the stunt coordinator Conrad Palmisano. Steven also had a bodyguard, Joe Crowley, present, who was an LAPD officer. As a security specialist and professional law enforcement official, he would have been in serious trouble had he let his boss get choked out and possibly killed by a marginal stuntman.
Yeah, that's a good point, too. Like, this, obviously, the bodyguards would not... Forget about egos. Like, the studio, this guy is the lead in this film for the studio. I mean, what kind of conditions would they allow for an altercation to even take place in the first place? Anything other than maybe some kind of stretching or technical demonstration, which is apparently what actually happened, with no actual altercation.
The stunt coordinator, Conrad Palmisano, was there and witnessed any interactions that occurred between Jean and Steven. Conrad is listed in the end credits on Out for Justice, by the way, as a stunt coordinator. Also, in an interview with Ariel Helwani, Steven tells him to ask Conrad what happened.
And when I first heard that, I was dumbfounded, and so was Conrad Palmisano, who you're welcome to go talk to. He was standing right there, and he's probably the...
Man, Ariel Helwani, so rude with the loud typing while Seagal is talking.
Most famous stunt coordinator in our business, and honest, upright, honorable, non-lying man. Yeah, you know what you should do if you don't believe me, and I'm pretty positive you do.
I do.
Find Conrad Palmisano. I know you do. Then find Conrad Palmisano and let him call Conrad a liar too. If he said those things, he should go have therapy. And you know, it makes him look like a demented child.
Bilicki's Facebook post
A demented child. Were truer words ever spoken?
Continues, Conrad Palmisano was one of the most successful stunt coordinators working in show business at the time. The legal exposure and professional consequences for Conrad would have been severe had he let a stuntman under his supervision aggressively even touch any star on a movie set. Quite simply, Conrad, as a professional with great responsibility, would never have allowed this situation to occur. Another stuntman by the name of Steen Lambert was also an eyewitness to Jean's and Steven's brief interaction. He also stated that Jean never choked out Steven and that no altercation ever occurred. We've of course already mentioned Stephen Lambert in his book as well as interview, though in his account there was actually a minor scuffle between the two that both men more or less just played off as if nothing happened. Summarizing the last paragraph in Bilicki's Facebook post, he says, "In truth, the story is nothing more than WWE type hype in which Jean LeBell is known to indulge going back to his early wrestling days."
So you have this pro wrestler fraud, Jean LeBell, who embellishes so many stories regarding Bruce Lee and otherwise. And then you have Seagal, who downplays his own abilities, who downplays everything because he's really trying to keep other people from feeling bad. I mean, it's kind of obvious to see what happened here. And yet there are so many goofs who just take the word of people who weren't there as gospel while completely ignoring all the people that actually were there in basic logic and reason.
Entirely fabricated story is simply a way of staying in the public eye and making a living at the expense of the reputation of another. There are radio shows like Joe Rogan and others who validate this ludicrous fiction in order to increase their ratings.
And obviously we know Rogan's a goof. I did a multi-hour expose on Rogan getting decimated with just basic logic by Eddie Bravo.
That's a true story. That's an absolute true story.
I like how Rogan says that's an absolute true story. How would he know if he wasn't there? I mean, he wants to believe it's true because he's just that jealous of the greatness of Seagal.
Jean LeBell told me that story.
Right, look, I like Joe Rogan. He's funny. He's a great martial artist. He does great commentary.
What is Viking Samurai smoking here?
But he kind of throws logic out the window.
Oh, well, that's accurate.
Says it's a true story because Jean LeBell told him the story. But if I told Joe Rogan that I fought and killed a grizzly bear, does that mean it's true because it's about me and I told him the story?
Good point, Viking Samurai. Good point. Yeah, we would. Yeah, this would be good. I mean, wasn't Joe Rogan supposed to fight Wesley Snipes in the UFC, and then that never happened? Snipes would have probably sniped Joe Rogan as well with some well-placed kicks, but yeah, I mean, Seagal would decimate Rogan even today. I mean, we watched 71-year-old Seagal putting on a clinic with Pereira and all these pro-UFC fighters and champions, just ragdolling them like small children at 71 years of age. And Rogan's nowhere near the level of those guys.
Of course not. Also, in the same video, Joe Rogan said Bruce Lee thought he could destroy anyone with the karate kick to the head and that Bruce Lee learned grappling from Jean LeBell.
You know, Jean was like, he's like the guy that taught Bruce Lee about grappling.
I mean, just the fraudulent nature of everything Rogan says. I mean, you could look through Bruce Lee's old notebooks from when before he ever met LeBell, where he's already diagramming out all of these grappling techniques. I mean, just the level of goof, I mean, it doesn't really surprise me anymore from Rogan. I mean, Rogan's one of these all-time great goofs. Like, he will always be top of the mountain. I mean, I don't know, he might be a Mount Rushmore type goof where he'll always be at least in the conversation of the goofiest of goofs in existence.
You know, Bruce Lee, back in the day, thought you could just karate kick everybody in the head.
I mean, patently false. Patently false. Bruce Lee, again, most of his earlier writings, he didn't believe in kicking higher than the waist.
That was the shit, you know?
Right. The part about Bruce Lee wanting to advance his martial arts incorporating grappling learned from Jean LeBell, I don't doubt whatsoever. But the part of him thinking he could destroy anyone with a head kick is false. I'm pretty sure the prevailing wisdom is that Bruce Lee was not really one to promote the use of head kicks in real combat situations.
And Bruce had different philosophies at that time than I did. He said, I believe in only kicking below the waist.
But of course, he'd want to incorporate them in films because they're not what the average guy or girl are physically capable of doing, so they look spectacular and impressive to the general public. But for Joe Rogan to say that Bruce Lee thought he could destroy anyone with a head kick is way off base.
Well, I mean, it's not like Bruce Lee couldn't destroy everybody with a head kick, but that's not what he was advocating.
So if he says something as misleading as that, you have to take his opinion on the Jean LeBell choking out Steven Skull story with a grain of salt as well. But it's funny how stories get exaggerated or twisted in general. For example, Chuck Norris first met Bruce Lee after winning the All-American Karate Open Championships at Madison Square Garden in 1968. Prior to their meeting, Chuck Norris said Bruce Lee didn't believe in kicking above the waist and that Chuck Norris taught Lee the various head kicks.
And I started showing Bruce different high kicks, spinning heel kicks, and jumping, spinning round kicks and stuff like this here.
As if Bruce Lee didn't perform head kicks prior to meeting Chuck Norris. However, Bruce Lee was already quite proficient in head kicks prior to 1968, as can be seen here in this scene of him playing Kato in 1966 in The Green Hornet. Perhaps Bruce Lee may have just had greater respect.
I mean, and notice how Chuck Norris never opened his mouth about anything like that, about him teaching Bruce Lee in any way on anything until after Bruce Lee died. None of these goofs opened their mouth while Lee was still alive. Very telling.
For the real-world application of using head kicks after training with Chuck Norris. Here's the thing, as far as Jean LeBell choking out Steven Skull's story goes, I think people want to believe the story because...
Man, Viking Samurai is on point with the editing here. Another shout out to Viking Samurai. He's got a pretty cool channel about 80s and 90s action movies. I mean, one of the only channels out there other than MINDSHOCK that really goes into that stuff.
Because it's an embarrassing story, and Steven Seagal just happens to be one of those people that others love to hate. Hollywood is not really different than high school.
And notice, they didn't love to hate him until the Illuminati fix was in with the anti-Seagal propaganda campaign. after he came out against Obama and then blowing the whistle on pretty much everything else in 2017 and January 2018 on Alex Jones's show, which we went over in episode 2. If you haven't checked that out, check that out.
It's very childish, it's immature, it's all about popularity, it's catty, it's vicious, it's a lot of drama. But the story just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. As mentioned, Seagal was already an established star during Out for Justice. He was the lead star. I just don't see the likelihood of allowing the lead actor to get hurt on the set of his own movie. I'd be surprised if any stuntman or any other crew member involved in that sort of incident would ever get to work again. There are several interviews all over the internet where the interviewer will ask someone about Steven Seagal. Take this one for instance, where the guy asked Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu legend Rickson Gracie about Steven Seagal. You could tell he really hopes Gracie will say something bad about Steven.
Steven Seagal. Have you heard of Steven Seagal?
Of course, he's a good friend.
What do you think of a guy like Steven Seagal? Is he a real martial artist?
I mean, definitely. I mean, based on his training, based on his understanding, he has a deep understanding of the concepts. He believes in technique, he believes in the concepts within martial arts, like Bruce Lee.
The interviewer just looked so disappointed with Rickson's response.
Yeah, this soy interviewer really looked like he wanted, Rickson to talk some trash about Seagal. But here's the thing about Rickson Gracie, too. This is a subject for another podcast. I might do a podcast on Kazushi Sakuraba, this 170-pounder from Japan who just absolutely exposed the entire Gracie family as frauds. He was known as the Gracie Hunter. I mean, this guy just, he had Royce throw in the towel after humiliating him in what is still the world record longest MMA fight on record in Pride. And Rickson ducked Sakuraba for years. He never actually even fought him. Yeah, Royce Gracie's one of the biggest frauds out there. I mean, even in the early UFCs, if Chemo, this random guy off the street, if he didn't have a ponytail, I mean, Royce would have never even won those UFCs. I mean, the whole thing was, the UFC was an infomercial for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which they stole from Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And they were opening up all these schools, and so they used it as an infomercial, and they prevented guys like Benny the Jet or Kiedis or any of these other, there were some really legit fighters who wanted to fight in the first UFC, and the Gracies in their infomercial fraud, they actually refused them entry. They hand-selected. Yeah, I'll do a whole episode on that. Seems a lot of people are interested in that. Not to mention, they didn't even start MMA. Shuto in Japan was founded in approximately 1985, and then there was also Vale Tudo in Brazil and many other organizations. Yeah, I mean, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is just they just built it off Japanese Jiu-Jitsu and pretended they invented the art of Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is Japanese. So, this all goes back to even Helio Gracie got dismantled by Kimura, who the Kimura lock is named after Kimura from Japan, in their contest. So the Gracies have been exposed as frauds for decades and decades and decades. And that, again, this is why Kazushi Sakuraba is like the unsung hero of MMA. I mean, he put the Gracies in their place. And then they had that fraudulent rematch where Royce Gracie, who was roided out of his mind, roided to the gills, and they gifted, even with that, he still couldn't legitimately beat Sakuraba in their rematch with both these guys well past their prime. Sakuraba clearly won the decision, and this happened in California, obviously, so the fix was in, but they gave Royce the win, even though he clearly didn't even win. Sakuraba controlled him the whole fight and did all the damage, and he was roided to the gills, whereas Sakuraba apparently had no violation of a drug test. No, that was Rickson, Pinto-Sack. Royce lost a bunch of fights. Rickson Gracie, the guy on screen right now, claimed he was 500-0. And his students explained that first of all, he actually lost several matches, including an official Sambo match. Again, I'll do a whole you guys seem interested in this. I'll do a whole podcast. I actually knew a couple guys that were involved in MMA early on, and in kickboxing and a lot of these things. Hickson actually lost an official. I mean, this is an official tournament bout in Sambo, and then and then he pretended he didn't know the rules. I mean, Hickson, the guy on screen right now. I mean, this is the guy that ducked Sakuraba. Sakuraba dismantled his entire family. And I don't want to get off the rails here and get off track here, but Kazushi Sakuraba literally had Hoist Gracie throw in the towel. They had special rules for their Pride FC bout, because Hoist Gracie, the Gracies were always crybabies who wanted special rules, so Sakuraba one-upped them. He said, okay, fine, we'll do unlimited rounds, unlimited time limit. And Sakuraba beat the brakes of Hoist Gracie. He was literally spanking him in the ring. He was toying with Hoist Gracie. It was over 90 minutes, and he intentionally wouldn't finish Hoist Gracie until Helio Gracie was forced to throw in the towel. When Hoist Gracie was so humiliated, he couldn't even answer the bell for the round that was coming up. And then Hickson still refused. Now, keep in mind, Hickson's a big guy. He's a big, muscular guy. Sakuraba was this scrawny welterweight guy. He wasn't that heavy. He was 170 pounds. Hickson, I think, fought at heavyweight or light heavyweight. Yeah, it's really entertaining. I guess I'll do an episode on that pretty soon. You guys seem to be interested in this stuff. But then Kazushi Sakuraba went on to break the limbs of all these other Gracies. And Hickson still wouldn't fight him. Hickson ducked and dodged the guy that humiliated his entire family and tarnished the entire Gracie name, and Hickson was still too cowardly to step into the ring with Kazushi Sakuraba. Like, Pride was literally offering the biggest purses in history in MMA at the time. I think they offered Hickson anywhere from $2 to $10 million, which was unheard of at the time, to fight Kazushi Sakuraba, and he refused. So these fraud Gracies, I mean, we really have to thank Kazushi Sakuraba for exposing these frauds. And the 501, Hickson's own student said that's because he counted sparring matches in the dojo. So he counted, as a black belt, he was counting matches against the students that not only could easily beat, but the students weren't even trying to beat him. They were just doing sparring sessions. He counted every sparring session in that 500-0 record. And that's why a lot of people don't take Hickson seriously, but Hickson actually was pretty decent. It's not like he was a scrub. Like, Hickson was a lot more legit than Hoist Gracie. Hoist Gracie was possibly one of the best Gracies. This was going way back into the history. Like, he was pretty legit, but nobody even knows about him. Everybody just remembers all the frauds. I mean, you even have guys, I mean, there's just Henzo spitting on opponents. I mean, some of these people are just despicable. And the Gracie propaganda machine was what built UFC. There were many other mixed martial arts organizations before the UFC. And yeah, they didn't build or create anything, and that includes jiu-jitsu as well, which is Japanese. I mean, imagine building a whole martial art after you get decimated by the guy that built the art you pretended to build, like when Kimura destroyed Helio. But anyway, Hickson was still Hickson was still really good, though. Just because he was, he made all these claims. Hickson's another guy who, he actually embellished the way people pretend Seagal does. Seagal downplays all his abilities. All these other guys play up. But anyway, let's get back to the video here.
But even Hickson referenced the Jean LEBELL story and seems to think it's true.
Oh, Jean LEBELL put him to sleep in a set. That's what I heard. In a movie.
At least he's honest. At least Hickson said, that's what I heard. I mean, you could hear anything about anything.
He said?
Probably because he's heard it from so many people.
That's what I heard.
As the old proverb says, never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Alright guys, time for our The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We're gonna dig through some comments. I don't really think that's something that happens on this channel since we're trying to make the 80s and 90s great again. So if anything, we probably have the opposite of recency bias. But anyway, if you're new to the channel, check out that video. It's a pretty good one. Alright, last but not least, this was from the Steven Seagal video I did where Steven Seagal was basically called out by Charlize Theron saying that he can't fight and she's talking a lot of trash on him.
Wait, I didn't see this one. Do you guys want to get into this one? The Steven Seagal Charlize Theron feud that somehow slipped through the cracks? I mean, we all know Charlize Theron. I mean, she's the lead authority on legitimate martial arts and history. I mean, who else can you think of when you need an expert opinion on on legitimacy within martial arts? I mean, I don't know if anybody could think of someone more knowledgeable in martial arts with more expertise in martial arts than Charlize Theron. I mean, what? I mean, wow, we really have to consider what she says here.
Now,
but again, going back to episode 2, it seems once the Illuminati, like, why is she even talking about Seagal in the first place? Like, as soon as Seagal blows the whistle on the Illuminati, all of a sudden you have these A-listers. Because Charlize Theron is an A-list. Why is she even talking about Seagal? Unless she got the Illuminati go-ahead to try to tarnish this great man's name.
this video, I'm putting in the ugly category, but I want to preface this. I absolutely love this comment. I just feel like the ugly category is kind of an other category, and also
Who would want to see Charlize Theron actually fight Steven Seagal? Oh man, can you imagine?
I feel like this kind of comment could get ugly response comments, but absolutely love this comment. This guy's kind of newer to the channel. He's a cool guy. He's been commenting on a lot of videos. Even though it's in the ugly category, absolutely love this comment. So Herbinator88 says, so I must admit, I bought into all the anti-Seagal hype that has been circulating in recent years, but seriously, your videos have made me reverse my position and go back to actually liking and respecting the guy. I loved his flicks in the late 80s, early 90s, and Under Siege is definitely one of my all-time favorite martial arts films. Seagal is a legitimate martial artist, no doubt, and Aikido, although disrespected among some martial arts commentators, is legit. One of my buddies is a longtime practitioner. So my response in general, I like to, find the good in people. So when I do like my Steven Seagal videos, everybody else is trashing him. Let me be that salmon swimming upstream against the current, and let me try to find something good to say. Just really appreciated the martial artist. In general, it's not like I'm trying to necessarily convert people, but I do want to put stuff out there. If anything, maybe people can hate Steven Seagal less, They don't have to love him, but if they could just hate him less, then I'm glad I'm putting these videos out.
I think Viking Samurai, he needs to do more homework because, I guess he doesn't have the AIs that I have to recover all these deleted Alex Jones videos, but it seems like the cabal really put the anti-propaganda, the anti-Steven Seagal propaganda in play as soon as Seagal started blowing the whistle on Hollywood and the Illuminati cabal. Do you guys want to get into Charlize Theron to make this? All right, let's finish with the Jean LeBell, and then we'll get into Theron. She's starting all these feuds with these, according to her, washed-up stars. Like, why would you randomly bring up Steven Seagal if you're Charlize Theron? She's doing all these big blockbusters. Why would she even mention Seagal? Lord Zed has a theory here. She says she wants Steven and is mad he has Asian persuasion. So, yeah, did she get turned down by Seagal? And is Seagal the type of guy to press sexual harassment charges against women who are harassing him and pursuing him? If all these women have these unwelcome advances towards Seagal, he doesn't seem to be the type of guy to start filing police reports. Is that what happened with Charlize Theron? But anyway, Viking Samurai put in even more legwork and actually got Stephen Lambert on his channel to give an interview to go over the specifics of what happened in this alleged altercation with this fraud, Jean LeBell. So let's take a look at this.
Anybody who says otherwise about this story are liars.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple, because they weren't there.
Hey guys, in today's video, this is a small segment from an interview I did with stuntman extraordinary Stephen Lambert. I'm going to post a full interview later. I'll be posting other clips and snippets throughout the week. But all this information, you got to get this book. Stephen Lambert, From the Streets of Brooklyn to the Halls of Hollywood, highly recommended. It will literally take you over a month to read, but the amount of content in there, just with Canon Films and the ninja craze in the 80s, Steven Seagal stories, including this one in this video, Van Damme stories, Arnold, Stallone, and so much more. Got to get the book. I'm going to link it in the description below. Amazing book, amazing read, highly entertaining. It's as if you're sitting with him in a bar and he's your friend and he's talking to you and telling you these stories, or the way he describes it, as if you're in his head. But you got to get this book. You can't. It's a page turner. You can't put it down. So anyway, on to the real story on Steven Seagal and Jean LeBell, from one of few men who were actually there to bear witness to it.
So get the book, because
yeah, they got to read the book. There's definitely a lot. There's so much in the book in general. So much stuff, good stuff on the Titanic, on Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Just,
I mean, Stephen Lambert did a lot of work in Hollywood. I mean, this is a legit guy with a legit history in movie stunts and stunt coordination.
You know, stuff on Stallone, Schwarzenegger. I do want to talk about Steven Seagal, though. You are one of the 4 actual eyewitnesses to this whole Jean LeBell, Steven Seagal story, correct?
Well, I think there's more than 4, but yes, I am. I had a friend of mine, speaking of Steven Seagal and Jean LeBell, a friend of mine called me and informed me that you did a podcast already on this. And I listened to it, and there was a few mistakes there. You had mentioned that you had read the story, and when you told the story, it wasn't quite right.
Oh, we would definitely want to get the real story from the actual witness. So when I read the book, it seems like...
From a man who is equal to my great friend and a wonderful talent, Conrad Palmisano, because there was conversation in there that I felt like the audience was having trouble believing my story. That was completely true. So yeah, there was 2 bodyguards, which was Steven Seagal's. There was Steven Seagal. There was Jean LeBell. There was Lincoln Simon, who was stunt guy, who was with me in my honey wagon, and myself. So there was 6 people there.
Okay.
Conrad, nobody else. There was no Conrad Palmisano, nobody else. You see, when you're working on a show.
And again, shout out to Stephen Lambert. He actually passed not long after this interview, I believe. He's battling an illness. And so, yeah, major props to Stephen Lambert, you know, to battle through his illness and still having the fortitude to set the record straight on Steven Seagal.
The honey wagons, the trailers, are situated in a configuration kind of like a wagon train would do when the Indians are coming after them. They circle them, so nobody on the outside can come in or see what's going on.
Lord Zed in the chat saying Seagal is all natural, no roids. That's another good point. Now, some people think Stallone might have been all natural as well. Obviously, Arnold has admitted to steroid use. So, but you have these giant muscle guys like Stallone, Arnold. I mean, Van Damme might have been natural too. He wasn't crazy huge. Dolph Lundgren also not crazy huge, but they were all muscle guys. But think about the level of skill Seagal must have possessed to not even need muscle.
The inside.
Lord said, yes, Sly got caught with something way later in his career, right? But in his initial, like, he wasn't on roids in Rocky 1. I mean, he was a pudgy bastard. I mean, I don't know. And he was super lean even in Rocky 3. Rocky 4, he was getting pretty jacked. He was getting quite jacked. So, I don't know about Rocky 4 and onward. Into the 90s, I mean, I don't know. He might have not been on steroids, but he was on growth hormone and all these other things. But he might not have been in most of the 80s.
So that was the circumstance. That's why there was only us 6 there, which is 2 bodyguards, LeBell, Seagal, Lincoln Simon, and I. Nobody else was there. Nobody else experienced it. Nobody else saw. You know, the people who have conversations with it on video and on in magazines, I say.
Lord Zed says, for sure no roids, Rocky 1. Yeah, by 4, there's no way he was clean, bro. He looks insane. Rocky 4, love Sly, though. Well, Rocky 3, he was very lean. And he had injuries. Didn't he tear a pec or something? So if he really was roided to the gills, I mean, that's really helpful for injury prevention. So it does not appear he was on roids even in Rocky 3. Rocky 4, he looks quite jacked. In Rocky 4, yes, he does. But what do you mean by clean? Because, I mean, are we... Steroids, you have growth hormone... You have all these different types of substances. Not all of them are the same. He was on some kind of substances into Rocky 4.
Shame on them because they weren't there. And so they have no business. Like, God bless her, Ronda Rousey, you know. I discuss her with a few other people in the book. You know, it's kind of shameful how she speaks about the situation because.
Preach, Stephen Lambert, preach. Put all these heathens in line. I mean, Ronda Rousey, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't know that she has a mental disability, so he's being a little too harsh. But still, I mean, you got to show respect to the master, Steven Seagal.
She wasn't there. And she says things that kind of make me scratch my head and should make others scratch their head. You know, she brings up the style of keto and says the keto isn't a very good style, which every martial artist should take offense to. Even she should take offense to because what she does has in keto in it.
Well, she'd have to have enough of a brain to realize that, though.
You know, and what she says about the situation and what went on, she wasn't there, as some others said too. And you shouldn't have an idea of what went on when you weren't there. So
isn't it shocking how we need a guy like Stephen Lambert to break it down to a children's level? Like, how, I mean, he has to, the fact that we even have to get into this detail, like, if you weren't there, you don't know what happened. I mean, small children understand this stuff. I mean, it's just mind-shocking how we even have to go over it.
You know, it's a very disappointing, being that she's a black belt and she's over 21, and she should have a little bit more maturity.
Man, Stephen Lambert has high hopes for Rousey. I mean, this guy... I mean, wow. Rest in peace, Stephen Lambert. But what a nice guy. What a nice man. Just having these high hopes for Rousey.
To figure out, you know, you don't put down a person or you don't say things that simply aren't true. I mean,
Exactly.
my God, Gal didn't piss in his pants. He didn't go into convulsions. But there was a confrontation. It was a physical confrontation. But it didn't have anything to do with pissing in his pants and or going into convulsions. What happened was, yeah, you know, prospective honey wagons, trailers. Lincoln Simon and I were in our own. We were sharing one, playing parts on the show, playing ourselves. And we were in our trailer getting dressed with the wardrobe they wanted us to wear. We came out, we got dressed, we came out. I came out first, and I happened to open a door, and I saw Seagal and LeBell and the 2 bodyguards talking in front of the honey wagon.
Just real quick here, what were the bodyguards really for? Were they for Seagal, or were they to prevent Seagal from killing other people if they got out of line? Because, I mean, it doesn't seem like Seagal would even need bodyguards. I mean, this guy doesn't even need witness protection after taking down the Gambino crime family.
LeBell's honey wagon, his trailer that he put wardrobe on. So, and we were probably a good 30, 35 feet away, And I looked in the trailer, and I said, "Hey, Lincoln, LeBell's talking to Seagal. Let's go see if we can join in." Just innocently. So I jump down and I start walking over, and Lincoln's about 10 feet back of me, jumps down, and we start walking over. When we get there, and just having a simple conversation in front of each other, and it's Seagal, and the two bodyguards are on each side of him, like the Adantis, king, and LeBell, and they're talking about moves and introducing themselves, being casual and entertaining, and everything's light, and they start talking about different techniques, and they're talking about a chokehold, and Seagal starts the conversation, and he goes, I see the way you do your chokeholds, and he was disagreeing on the way that LeBell would do it. And LeBell said, well, let me explain to you how I do it. Let me show you. Now, as you being a black belt, a martial artist, when you work with somebody, a master, a black belt, even somebody that is a white belt, when you're working with somebody, when you're showing somebody, it's an automatic known fact, rule, that you go slow. You're having a conversation, you're teaching, you're showing, you're expressing your movement. And that's just what LeBell was doing. In slow motion, he walks around Seagal, and he's in back of him, facing his back, and Seagal's kind of overlooking. We see the two bodyguards looking, and Lincoln and I are we're in back of one side, and back of LeBell, watching, very innocent, and LeBell starts to put his hands around him, and very slow, just as I'm moving, right? And the minute his hands go around Seagal's neck, before he even touched him, grazed him, Seagal just sidesteps, full blast, and forearms, bang, forearms. See what I'm doing?
Yeah.
But down, right in his crotch.
I mean, the speed of Seagal is just unrivaled here. I mean, Jean LeBell just can't handle this level of speed. It's like, because again, we have to remember, Seagal said he was born clairvoyant. So Seagal must have anticipated that LeBell was trying to make a name for himself and used the trust that was established there to try, so he basically he said he's semi-psychic, right? I mean, we'll be getting into that. We'll be getting into this. Actually, you know what? Let's do it right now, because people don't understand the psychological level that Seagal is at. They do not comprehend how many steps ahead Seagal is mentally. We're not talking about physically, obviously, but mentally. So let's look at this interview here, where Seagal is actually going to divulge his mental level. And then so people will understand why Seagal did what he did. Because I don't think people can even fathom how many steps ahead mentally Seagal is.
We served the same master. And he's a lunatic and he's ungrateful. There's nothing we can do about it.
I mean, look at Seagal dropping the truth bombs even in Under Siege. These Illuminati truth bombs.
You and I were the same.
Steven Seagal has become one of the world's best-known action movie stars. He is a 7th Dan black belt expert in Aikido. And in his movies, wherever he confronts evil, he doesn't just defeat it, he shreds it. But fighting bad guys around the world isn't the only role Seagal is known for. He's also a powerful teacher of spirituality.
I was born clairvoyant.
I mean, people just can't fathom what it's like to be born clairvoyant.
I was born a healer, and I was born very different.
You can say that again. Seagal is said to be a reincarnated Buddhist Lama, and to many, that makes him a god.
Well, I mean, you know, this I really shouldn't say on camera, but...
But he does say it anyway. He claims he's God.
Notice the propaganda spin here? Notice the propaganda spin. He didn't say he was God. Pay attention to what Seagal says here.
A description many use about themselves in the East.
We say sort of the same thing in Buddhism. We believe that all sentient beings have the Buddha nature within them, which means they are all, you know, sort of God.
So if all sentient creatures are sort of God, according to Seagal, obviously Seagal is God, but so is everybody. Everybody's the manifestation of God. So how do people not understand this and this propaganda hit piece trying to pretend he said that he alone was God?
That's quite an admission from the famous actor. Steven Seagal shared with me his stories about being a healer, about being clairvoyant, about being a god, when he headlined here at the House of Blues in downtown Cleveland. Seagal sings, acts, and plays guitar.
Yeah, headlining at the House of Blues. I mean, could some guy who bluffed his way into playing guitar be a headliner at the House of Blues?
He tells me many of his fans are also his spiritual students, that he teaches them on and off screen just with his gaze and gestures.
The ones who know, know.
The ones who know. I mean, I don't think we're ready for this level of wisdom from Seagal. I mean, Seagal's trying to keep it simple and trying to enlighten everybody, but he's just that far ahead.
They can look into my eyes or just hear my voice and something clicks and they know.
Seagal teaches others what he's learned himself from great teachers in India and elsewhere, that everyone is God. It's just that they don't know it yet.
I think the foundation of all people has to be where we come from ultimately. And ultimately where we come from is the divine.
He loves stirring things up, as when Seagal suggests that everything in life is good, even what's bad.
If the bad teaches us, is the bad bad?
Well, in the ultimate teaching, all is good.
Come on, that's not striking, officer. That's striking.
A man who says he's God, who hurts and kills dozens in his movie. A veritable contradiction in terms. Yet, shockingly, for all of his bravado and toughness, Steven Seagal ends his interview with me in Cleveland pleading for forgiveness for any real harm he has ever caused anyone.
I am sorry for any pain or suffering or hurt or negativity I've caused any sentient being.
I mean, is that an apology to Jean-LeBell?
I was born a healer. I was born a healer.
Spirituality.
I was born clairvoyant.
So, Seagal, born clairvoyant. So does this explain why he struck? Yeah, Heracles says read between the lines. So Seagal must have anticipated that Jean-LeBell, this fraudulent nobody from pro wrestling, was going to try to make a name for himself and actually choke Seagal out. He anticipated it. I mean, this is why I think it'd be very difficult, even today at 71 years of age,
and
single strike on Seagal, let alone defeat him.
His hand.
Let's see. Yeah, they don't like this stream. Alright, are we back? I think we're back. Is everybody back? Alright, let's continue.
And Lincoln's mouth was open, and my mouth was open. I was shocked because that was full blast. Everything was full blast.
Sure.
Up until then. And the bodyguards looked. After he looked, they looked at Seagal. They looked at LEBELL. And I'm watching this. And this happened a matter of a split second. And I'm thinking, oh my God, here comes a huge fight. because I'm thinking the bodyguards are looking at LeBell. And the bodyguards look back at Seagal. And I look back at Seagal, and Seagal shakes his head like a no. And the minute Seagal did that with his head, the bodyguard stood down.
Man, Seagal just saving LeBell's life every step of the way here.
Because they were like almost in reaction mode, confrontation reaction mode. And like I said, this happened in a matter of moments. And the minute LeBell felt like, you know, everything was easing up, he stuck out his hand and said, but if I did that, let me show you what you could do, and helped them up. And I was scared that something else was going to go on. So I ran to get the stunt coordinator, Conrad Parzano, and he was busy with camera, setting camera. So I'm in back of him, and he had producers, directors, the DP, everybody listening to him. So I'm in back, and I'm waiting for the right moment, you know, because you can't just barge in. You don't want people to know. You don't want to make a big thing out of this, right? So I go in back of him, waiting for the right moment, and I kind of lean to his ear, and I said, Conrad, I said, there's a confrontation with Seagal and LeBell at base camp. You know, you better get over here and break it up. Well, he didn't understand what I was saying, so he ignored me. And I'm just looking, and he's continuing with his camera work. So I walk away, kind of hesitant, 5-10 feet away, and all of a sudden he pops up and he realizes what's going on. And he runs over there, and he yells to LeBell before he even gets over there. You know, he's like 40 feet away. And LeBell, get back to your trailer. And LeBell looks at him and goes to his trailer, right? Back to his trailer. And that was the end of that. And that's what happened. Now, who told, who got it out, who spread it out? I know I didn't. I know Lincoln did it. At least I believe Lincoln. I don't know if the bodyguards did it. I don't know if Seagal did it, leaked it out. I don't know if Jean LeBell leaked it out. Jean LeBell, I love him. You see how close Jean LeBell and I are in the movie, but Jean LeBell is a showman.
So this is a guy who knows Jean LeBell very well. I mean, saying he's a showman, I mean, that's a very polite way of describing this fraud, this pro wrestling fraud.
Right? I don't think he would tell a lie. I think that lie, that rumor, that part of it, pissing in his pants and going convulsions, I think it was spread by somebody else, somebody who was writing the story. You know? It
Yeah. But it's kind of funny how LeBell phrased it, I choked out Seagal, when clearly Seagal, they were having a conversation about techniques, and Seagal allowed him to at least start the choke, and then Seagal's psychic powers kicked in. And that's what led to this altercation.
Somebody to somebody to somebody, but I believe LeBell would never say what was said to the magazines and all that.
If I had to guess...
I also, let me say, I feel horrible for Steven Seagal. He deserved it, what he got, because he started it, but the after occurrence, all these years later, is brutal.
Yeah, because he's still getting crap about it. And I just wanted to, you know, give the audience full context. So you just want the truth out there, obviously. If anything, you and Jean LeBell are good buds. And if you were going to be biased, you would just go with Jean LeBell because he's your buddy. But obviously the truth matters more to you.
Oh, exactly what I told you just now, exactly what I have in the book is I've seen Jean LeBell many times. He's read my story, you know. He says that's exactly what happened, right?
Obviously, LeBell's a lying fraud, because that's what LeBell told to Lambert. So to Lambert's face, he says, yeah, obviously that's what happened. But then he goes and tells Joe Rogan and Rhonda and all these other frauds, he tells them a different story. And obviously he's too terrified to expose his fraudulent lying nature to Stephen Lambert himself. And Stephen Lambert, what a nice guy here.
If you put Jean-Bell and I together on an interview, and I look at him and I say, for you, and as I say, didn't what I wrote in the book, Gene, isn't that exactly what happened? He'll tell you that's exactly what happened. Right?
Yeah, I don't doubt that at all. I think it's interesting. I think
close, and we've discussed this already. I've teased him. You know, he tells me that he didn't say that. Somebody else said that. He can't figure out, but he'll play with you. If you interview him, he'll play with you because Gene is a showman. You know,
I think he likes the idea that the story is out there because I've seen him in other interviews where he won't like necessarily confirm or deny it. I think because he got whacked in the balls, essentially, he just likes that Seagal, like this story is out there, almost like it's deserving of that happening to Seagal because, you know, of the incident that happened. So I kind of feel like maybe one of the bodyguards told the real story and the guy who heard the story probably added something and then told someone else and they added something. And then it's become into this essentially.
And let's keep in mind the timeline of them bringing it all out as well. Charlize Theron is not talking about this story in the 90s or early 2000s, is she? Nobody is. It's only after Seagal exposes the Illuminati cabal that everybody is suddenly going with this story.
That's usually the way it starts.
Yeah.
Now, like I said, you know, Seagal's fault. It's his fault. I also said I feel bad for him. It's brutal because it's carried on this long. But if he would have admitted it in a playful way with respect at the beginning or in the middle or even now.
But I think Stephen Lambert doesn't understand Seagal's clairvoyant nature. What is Seagal supposed to say? That he sensed that LEBELL was this fraud trying to make a name for himself? That would make him even worse, and Seagal is such a nice guy, he probably doesn't even want to expose LEBELL, who's already been exposed as a fraud. I mean, I don't know.
It would go away. A couple of people have called me, you know, and said, what do you think would happen if we got them together? And I said, well, I'm sure Gene would come. You know, Seagal's got to get off his high horse. And the trick is to make it funny.
Yeah.
Make it funny when they meet. Make it fun, because I'm sure LEBELL would make it funny. You know, come here, Steven, you know. You know, your ball shot really, you know, made me fly in the sky, you know. How'd you like me falling, you know, putting you on your back, you know? Well, LEBELL, you're one of the few that has ever been put on my back, you know. I congratulate you for that. You know, for whatever, you know, it could be humorous and it would all go away.
Yeah, that'd be great if that played out.
I've suggested that to a few interviewers that's called me up privately, you know, and Seagal refuses to do that.
So I think our interview is basically the only one with one of the witnesses, you, that's going to be out there because you did 2 interviews with Palmisano and Balicki and Seagal where you were telling the story, but it sounded like they wanted to like badmouth Jean LEBELL and kind of turn it into that.
Well, that's a whole nother story. It's connected.
Yeah.
It's connected. There's 3 or 4 stories there connected. You're talking about, there was one at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and there was one at a circus guy's house. The circus guy's house was the first interview. That didn't come out for some reason, so we did one at another place, at the Beverly Hills Hotel. So there's 3 or 4 connections meeting with that.
Yeah, so basically the audience has to buy this book to get all the details. But
the one in the Beverly Hills Hotel was a mind blower, and you know, read that part in detail because it was scary, and I can't tell you what went on entirely. Even in the book, there's one part of it that I talk about that you have to fantasize. But Seagal has that video, what really went on. And he threatens every now and then to put out that video. They try to trick me into badmouthing Van Damme.
Yeah, LEBELL. Yeah.
LEBELL. They try to trick me in.
Wait, so Seagal, what does Seagal have on video of him beating down LEBELL?
To badmouthing LEBELL. But I was smart enough. I have Brooklyn Street Sense.
Oh, apparently there was a video of Lambert saying something about the incident against LEBELL. Anyway, so again, this is an account from someone who is actually there, unlike all these goofs repeating the story like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan hallucinating. That's absolutely true because this guy said so. I mean, the goofery of Rogan obviously knows no bounds.